Hello grade teens, we are going to move on to week 2's work. I hope in week 1 that your research essay went very well, and I'm very excited to receive your essays so that I can mark that and give you your good marks back. So for week 2 we are going to introduce our new section, which is called Climatology. So climatology is a very extensive section. It goes from the basic to very complex things. So we're going to start with the basics today. I divided the work up for the next 2 weeks into lessons. And I will be doing a lesson a day. So please follow on YouTube and make sure that you stay up to date. So when we look at the word climatology, we need to know that climatology deals with the study of the atmosphere and how it changes over time. So the atmosphere affects all of us every single day. From the food we eat to the way we dress, and even our actions are determined by the atmosphere. So we are going to be discussing how it is important, why it changes and how it changes, and how these changes impact us as humans. So if we have a look at our first section, it deals with warm and cold air. Now obviously warm and cold air influences how we dress, the activities we're going to do, and the type of food we're going to eat. So it impacts us quite a bit. So let's have a look at this warm and cold air. So as we know, air is all around us, okay? And not all the air around us is the same temperature. Temperature is different depending on places and heights. So you might think that the higher up you go, the colder it gets. And that is true to some extent. And we are going to look at that section in lesson 2, which discusses the layers of the atmosphere. The differences in temperatures causes the air to move. So moving air, guys, is called wind. Any air that moves around in the atmosphere is called wind. Then it gives us different weather conditions. So when I say weather conditions, I'm referring to, is it sunny with clear skies, or is it partly cloudy, or is there a thunderstorm coming? Is it very hot? Is it a thunderstorm, or is it just rain? Is it snow? Is there a lot of wind, or whatever it might be? Because of changes in the atmosphere, we can determine weather, and we experience different weather conditions. Now, while we're going through this section, keep in mind your favorite season and think of the things that you experience in terms of temperature and weather conditions. When you think of your favorite season while we are discussing this. So let's look at the differences between warm and cold air. So they've asked you on the notes to copy down a table into your books, and just so that you don't feel like you're working alone, I did the same. I copied this into my book onto my iPad, so we can look at it together. So we have warm air on the one side and cold air on the other. So warm air has more energy, okay? It takes up more space because it expands. You can think of something that lies in the sun the whole day. It would actually be expanding. Not so much that you can see it with your naked eye, but it is expanding. So if you think of an old farmhouse, often at night you hear the walls and the roof creaking or like making sounds. That is because the house is cooling down and it is contracting. The wood of the house or the zinc roof of the house, that is all contracting, and contraction happens when there is cold air. Now in this example that I'm talking about, the cold air would be at night and the warm air would be in the daytime. Okay, so it takes up more space, warm air. So there's a little diagram. You can see the molecules of warm air are further spaced out, further away from each other, and they take up more space. So there's lots of space in between these molecules when there is warm air. There is lots of space for them to move around. All right, so there's more space between the particles. It is less dense and it is lighter. And that is often, guys, because this air is lighter, that is why this type of air rises up. So warm air rises, cold air sinks. All right, I want you to copy these diagrams even more beautifully into your books. So let's look at cold air. So when we look at cold air, we know that it's the exact opposite as warm air. So it has less energy, it takes up less space, and it contracts. So there's lots of molecules, lots of particles in the atmosphere when there's cold air, and there's less space in between these particles. So it is more dense, so it is heavier, and therefore cold air sinks. It's heavy, so it sinks down. Those are the main differences that we have when we look at cold air and warm air. Now, when we look at cold air and warm air, you would maybe recall something called the Coriolis Effect. Now, the Coriolis Effect is something that deflects moving objects to either turn to the left or to the right, depending on the hemisphere that it would be in. So here's our hot air on this side. Hot air goes in a clockwise direction. So it would go this way as it rises. It's a clockwise direction, where the Coriolis effect causes cold air to go anti-clockwise when it sinks. So once the air sinks and it reaches the surface of the earth, it moves to the sides. It moves along the land. And this is where the warming up of air happens again. And we are going to look at this, and it's something called the convection current. And I've used lovely colors here so you can understand a little bit better. So let's have a look. Here we have warm air that rises. So up, up, up the air goes. When it reaches the top point, this is either where condensation can occur and clouds could form, and precipitation would be the result of that. But this is where air then moves. Air cools down in this direction, and cold air is heavier. Cold air would sink down, so the cold air goes down again to the surface of the earth, and the air diverges, meaning it moves outwards. When it says the air converges, it means the air moves inwards. So converge inwards, diverge outwards. So while the air is diverging over here, the air warms up again. Now the way the air warms up again is because the ground or the surface of the earth is hot from baking in the sun. So you can imagine the sun's rays shining down off the surface of the earth, warming it up. As the wind blows across the surface, the air warms up again and hot air rises. And this whole thing happens again. When it's up in the sky, condensation, clouds, precipitation, the air cools down, cold air is heavier, so it sinks again. This is called a convection current. And it is very important for you to understand this cycle. So another thing to remember, and we mentioned it earlier, is any moving air is called wind. Any air that is moving, it's blowing across the surface of the earth or in the sky, that is called wind. Okay, so when we look at the warm air and the cold air, we can see what kind of weather conditions it would bring along. When we look at cold air brings clear skies, no condensation that occurs. If there's no condensation, there can't be any clouds, and without clouds, there's no rain. So you have clear blue skies, and everybody loves these kind of days. Then if we look at the warm air brings on something different. Because warm air rises, condensation occurs up in the sky, clouds are formed, and when there's lots of dense clouds, it brings on rain. So, with cold air, clear skies. With warm air, rainy weather. Alright, so this is our main differences between cold air and warm air.